Speaking of people who just don't care, for Hellbent's finals, he wrote all the answers from his study guide on his goddamn wiener. When it was time for the test, he pulled his pants 1/4 the way down, whipped out his wiener, and hid it from the teacher. He ended up only getting a B- because his classmates were like, "What the fuck? Why do you have your penis out? Holy shit!"
When Gergak was in the 5th grade, his math teacher was giving everybody homework at the end of class. Gergak and his friend Spinal Palm asked if they could make a math joke for the class. They stood up and Gergak asked, "What's 9 plus 10? They didn't have the actual joke prepared, so Spinal Palm blurted out 21. Everyone, including the teacher, sat there confused, wondering if they missed the punchline. Even I'm sitting here confused. I guess the joke was that it was not the right answer? I don't know. Either way, the teacher told them to sit down and shut up and never tell a joke again. Dolan's brother once caught the train at around midnight, and after hanging out with some friends, he got off at his station and started walking home. On his walk, he decided to take a shortcut through a conservation park. While walking through the park, Dolan's brother saw a big light around 50 meters away through all the bushes and the shrubs. It caught his attention, so he walked towards it while hiding in the bushes, making sure that if people were there, they couldn't see him. Dolan's brother got closer to the light and saw around 10 people gathering around a fire in cloaks and quietly chanting something. He watched for a moment, but they were all crouched, just staring into the fire. He was so freaked out, so he decided to backtrack through the bushes, and once Dolan's brother reached the path, he ran away.
Mimi Up was an extreme bargain hunter who stocked stuff under her bed. Her friends would refer to her as their store and would always ask her for stuff if they were short on it. One day, Mimi's roommate wanted some detergent that was shoved all the way to the back under the bed in the corner. Mimi started to pull things out and crawled under the bed. She found the detergent she wanted, but got stuck trying to get it out. Mimi's friend tried to pull her out, but couldn't, so she went to get help. More friends came and tried pulling her out, but they failed, and they all kept laughing about the fact that she was basically just talking legs. After about 30 minutes, they called the landlord. He showed up and laughed at how stupid it was. He took the mattress off the bed and pulled her out that way. Mimi gave him some free detergent for helping her, and then she got a stick for getting stuff out from under the bed.
In Doopy's last year of elementary school, she had a crush on this cute boy who liked drawing. She was always too shy to talk to him, so her friends came up with a weird plan to get him to notice her. They told Doopy to sit near her crush at lunchtime. She then had to take one of the carrots that she had for lunch and pretend to choke on it. Doopy knew this was crazy, but she went along with it anyway. Just as she was biting into her carrot, Doopy hesitated and thought,
"Wait a minute. I might die from this."
Because of this, she accidentally gulped down the carrot without biting, and she started choking for real. Everyone in the cafeteria stared as Doopy's face turned purple. Her friends thought she was faking it, so they didn't do anything to help. Luckily, a nearby teacher came and saved her, but as for Doopy's crush, he just stood by watching in shock.
Senpai will never notice me.
Back when Tulip was in high school, he loved playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, but never had the cash to buy new cards, and his kept getting stolen. So he thought to himself,
"Fuck it! If people are gonna steal from me, then I'm gonna steal some cards too."
A dumb conclusion. But nevertheless, Tulip stole them anyway. One weekend, Tulip and his grandma went to Walmart to pick up groceries, and every now and again he would go over to the card aisle and take a few packs, or if he felt ballsy, a whole deck. Anything he could fit into his pocket. But Tulip was no fool. He knew about the security system that you had to go through. So what he would do is take the cards, put them in his pocket, go to the bathroom, and after making sure no one was inside, Tulip went to the stall and opened a pack or a deck of cards and put them in his pocket. He'd flush the wrappers down the toilet, along with tearing up the cardboard into tiny pieces and flushing them too. Then he would just walk out of the store with the cards in his pocket and not setting off the alarm. He never got caught once. They got smart though and kept moving the cards around in different places to prevent people from stealing them. Now there's no way in hell to steal them without someone spotting you. Dollop doesn't do it anymore because he's grown out of that phase. If he wants cards, he'll just pay for them. But he thought it was fun while it lasted.
When Zaraganba was 7 years old, he was cleaning out the dishwasher when his hand slipped and ended up dropping one of the dinner plates and breaking it. When his parents rushed in to see what happened, he realized he was in big trouble. They told him to sit in the laundry room while they discussed his punishment. A few minutes later, they came into the room and told him that he would have to sleep on the dog's bed instead of his own. That night, he lay in the kennel grumbling, while his dog slept in the luxury of his bed.
Ursa was running late for a night shift at a fancy restaurant, but just as she walked in, she heard, "Everybody get on the ground and don't move." Ursa looked and saw that the culprit was a drunken guest holding a banana in his hand. The man ran straight to Ursa shouting, "Give me a damn wallet or I'll pull the trigger." Ursa kicked him in the nuts and threw him out of the restaurant. Ursa feels like that might have been overkill because he was drunk and all, but he was scaring kids. What was she supposed to do?
When he was in high school, Derek was in his earth science class, typing on a word processor that he used to write papers in and take notes in class. When his friends asked him about the device, Derek let it slip that he also used to write stories and published a couple of them on a website, with one of them getting 55,000 views. Suddenly their teacher came up and asked what they were talking about. His friends told the teacher that they were talking about Derek's story writing and that one of the stories he had published got a lot of views. The teacher looked it up and when he found it, began reading it to the class. Derek was horrified because his story had an explicit sex scene. He screamed in embarrassment and ran out of the classroom as soon as the teacher read that scene. Later that day, Derek noticed that he had a notification from the site where he published the story. It was pretty awkward.
When Gergak was 9, he was out playing in the woods with his cousin and a neighbor girl who was slightly older. When going on long walks in the forest and the urge came to pee, Gergak would find a bush somewhere far off the path and do his business, rather than walk all the way back home. While they were climbing around on a tree, his cousin proudly announced that he was going to go home to pee, leaving Gergak there with this girl. Gergak climbed over to the girl and said,
"Yeah, he could have just peed in a bush or something. Why did he run back?"
She looked at him for a second, and then she laughed.
Pee in a bush? What are you talking about?
Gergak answered,
I don't know about girls, but I know guys that have done it.
She paused, and then asked Gergak to show her. He told her to wait where she was while he ran into the bushes. Gergak made sure she couldn't see him, and he peed. When he came back, she didn't believe that he had actually gone.
You have to do it right here in front of me if you want me to believe you.
At that moment, Gergak realized that this girl was in it to see his dibbly von dangly. He gave her a funny look, turned around, and he ran like hell back to his cousin's house. Gergak never saw that girl again.
The worst family Melissa ever served was a mother, dad, older sister, her boyfriend, and younger sister. As soon as Melissa sat them down, the boyfriend demanded, "Get me some bread!" As soon as Melissa walked away, the mother got up, slapped a hand on her shoulder, and spun her around. She asked Melissa, "What on the menu can we have very quickly? My youngest is starving!" Later, as Melissa was stacking the plates, the youngest sister clicked her fingers and said, "Clean it now!" pointing at the mess she'd made. After that, the youngest sister resorted to holding her glass in the air when she wanted water, even though the bottle was right in front of her. When the final dish was laid, the older sister had been silent the entire time, put down her rhinestone-encrusted iPhone, and burst into tears. Melissa was then barged out of the way by the mother, who ran around to the oldest daughter, cradled her head, and stroked her hair. There, don't worry, the food will be here soon." Melissa had to ask them to leave.
Emoji was on Facebook one day and saw a woman wanting to divorce her husband. Her husband had been cheating on her, which she knew because she caught him in the act of sleeping with another woman on the bedroom floor. The husband's excuse was that he wasn't sleeping with her and that he did not know who she was. He got out of the shower, bumped into her, tripped, and fell on top of her. The divorce was finalized in a matter of minutes.
When Nick Siam worked at the deli counter in a grocery store, a customer demanded that every slice of meat or cheese or anything else be separated by a piece of deli paper. Then they proceeded to order 3 pounds of super thin cut ham. It was well over 100 slices of meat, and they wanted Nixium to put paper between every single slice. Mimi was staying at her boyfriend's house one night, and she thought everything was going great between them. In the middle of the night, she really needed to go to the bathroom and noticed her boyfriend wasn't next to her. She shrugged, walked to the bathroom, opened the door, and was shocked at what she saw. Mimi's sister was in there, getting it on with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend yelled, "Get out, we're done!" then pushed Mimi out of the house while he was completely naked. Robo got a call from a number she didn't know one day. She picked it up and heard what sounded like an old man say, "Who is this?" Robo said, "You called me!" To which the old man replied, "Guinevere? Is that you? I thought you were dead, but you must have come back for me, right? I still have the knife I killed you with. Good times. Good times." Robo put the phone down and screamed, "Oh, hell no!" Robo hung up, deleted the number, and turned her phone completely off. 2 months later, the same old man called again with the same message. But that time, the woman was named Rachel. That's when Robo decided to get a new phone and change the number.
A few years ago, Nixium worked at an adult store. It was an unusual place to work, but his coworkers were all very normal. Except for one guy. This young guy was a bit odd, but Nixium gave him a chance because he worked hard and he was always on time. Well, one afternoon, Nixium's manager came in and announced that the young guy had been fired. When Nixium asked why, his manager said,
He was stealing money out of the till and he stole some merchandise. He was taking out reusable masturbators, using them while he was supposed to be working, and then putting them back on the shelf for customers to buy.
Nixium suddenly regretted ever shaking this guy's hand. One time, Tolop cheated on a test by letting his friend write the whole test for him. The thing about their test is that there are 2 different versions, so the teacher would know who cheated and who didn't. So Tolop just slipped his friend his test, and he wrote the whole test for him. When his friend was alone, he slipped it back to Tolop, and it was all good. The funny part is that they sat right in front of the teacher, and he never noticed Tolop passing his friend his test. Tolop aced that test. Moral of the story is that if you have a smart friend and you sit beside him, just let him do your test for you, and all will be good. In grade 5, I had a bodybuilder for a French teacher, and his name was Mr. D. Actually, though, that was his name. And I'm not kidding about the bodybuilder thing. He competed in everything. He'd walk around all macho-like, with his chest puffed out, and would wear shirts that looked as if they'd rip at any time. A few weeks into class, he started dealing out punishments for kids that didn't do their homework. 20 push-ups per day late. One obnoxious and slightly overweight kid named Fred complained about this to his mother, who came into class the next day to complain about it to her teacher. Turns out, Mr. D ended up convincing his mother to attend a fitness class and enroll Fred in a sports team.
When Helmut was 16, he went over to a friend's place to hang out. The friend had his younger cousin over there, who Helmut had never met before. The cousin was sleeping in the corner with a hoodie draped over him. Helmut could tell he was on something, probably ice or pills. He was fidgeting, so Helmut knew he was coming down bad. This cousin had robbed a gas station the night before and was basically hiding out. When the cousin woke up, he looked at Helmut and became agitated. Helmut and his friend tried to calm him down, but he was extremely paranoid. He pointed at Helmut and shouted,
"I don't fucking trust him!"
Then he reached behind him and pulled out a revolver. Helmut watched the guy's finger slowly squeeze around the trigger. The gun clicked and the cylinder began to rotate. Helmut braced, but the gun didn't fire. Helmut quickly punched the guy in the stomach and wrenched the gun from his hand. When the police showed up, Helmut asked an officer what were the chances of a loaded gun not firing. The officer said it was probably a dud primer, the chances of which are 1 in 100,000.
One day, Gooby noticed a little girl on the school playground. The girl was holding on to the bars of a roundabout and screaming,
Someone push me! Spin me!
A teacher on duty told her to be careful, but as soon as he went away, the girl got her friend to spin her as fast as she could. The roundabout eventually went so fast that the little girl couldn't hold on. She went flying through the air like a ninja star. The girl broke her arm, so the school had to disassemble the roundabout. Although she ruined everyone's fun, the sight of her spinning through the air was one of the funniest things Gooby has ever seen. Snoopy was dating a girl in high school who she went to the mall with. She ended up at the back wall of Spencer's, the one with a plethora of sex toys and silly sex-themed stuff. Snoopy decided to browse the t-shirts and jewelry across the novelty items until she heard some yelling coming from behind her. To Snoopy's horror, her girlfriend stood there with a spiky bra over her clothes, a pair of fake breasts draped over her arm, dildos stuffed into the bra, her pockets, and some of her hands. Apparently she had been trying to gauge the sizes and pulled the merchandise out of the boxes to see if some of them would fit. She had a total of 5 dildos on her. Her excuse was that she didn't have a shopping basket, so where else was she going to put all those clothes and dildos? Red-faced from embarrassment and anger, Snoopy had to help remove everything from her as the cashier assumed she was stealing. She quickly dragged her girlfriend from the store. She got angry and told Snoopy she was overreacting. To top it all off, once they got back to the car, she pulled a small vibrator out of her pants that she had not paid for and asked to try it out on Snoopy in the mall parking lot. Snoopy demanded to go home, and she broke up with her girlfriend a few days later. When Pringle was in school, he had 2 teachers that had a no farting rule. His senior year math teacher, in particular, was a total fart Nazi. One fart would get you a verbal warning, and the second one would mean instant detention. If a student dared to fart a 3rd time, that was a suspension and a permanent black mark on their record. One day, Pringle had leftover chili for lunch and turned into a farting machine. When he was sent home, his parents demanded to know what kind of trouble he got into, so Pringle showed them the official school documentation which said, "Suspended for farting." They were not happy.
Andy was riding in an old train with her boyfriend at the time. It was a quiet, ordinary journey until the train suddenly stopped and a group of armed military men came bursting in. The military men held Andy and her boyfriend up at gunpoint, then did the same to everyone else in the carriage. They demanded to see everyone's ID and eventually moved along once they were satisfied. Andy watched them move down the carriage and detain a group of young guns who had no doubt done something really bad. She was terrified at the time, but now finds it funny.
Nixium had a bunch of kids for neighbors, and they were out of control. They once broke his mum's sidecar mirror. When they told the parents told them to fuck off. Almost 3 months ago, his neighbors got a female pit bull puppy. They barely took care of her, leaving her outside in the Las Vegas heat with very little water and food. The kids were rough with her too. They kicked and threw and just abused her. Nixium told the parents about it, and they told him that it was their animal, and they could just do whatever they pleased. One morning, Nixium realized the dog was gone from the yard. He just ignored it, but the day after, he smelled an unbearable smell coming from their house. He soon realized it was coming from a trash can that they had conveniently placed close to the fence. Nixium opened it, and of course, the dog was in there, dead. He went and told them to move the trash can, but they ignored him. So he moved it because the smell was going into his room and the whole house. They got mad at him for doing that. Now his parents have a turtle they just leave outside in the sun where the kids play with it as a toy. The neighbors were also careless with their kids. They have a 2-year-old son they left outside in the streets alone. And they got mad at Nixium because he put the kid back in the yard and closed the fence. He did that twice because the little kid was so close to being run over both times. Nixium called the police, but they can't do anything about it because he has no solid proof. My advice to Nixium in that situation was to wait until the kid became a splatter on the pavement. Then you bring in the police and you illustrate, okay, this is what happened. Oh, there you go. Oh, I mean, I was easily prevented, but hey, it's not my responsibility, not my kid, dude.
Zaragamba's young cousin asked him once about the Easter Bunny and why he only comes around once a year. He forgot how naive the kid was and told him that the Easter Bunny was a bloodthirsty beast that was kept in a cave all year and only let out on one night to feast. He then asked Zaragamba what Jesus had to do with Easter, and he told him Jesus was the guy who removed the rock that seals the Easter Bunny's cave. Needless to say, his cousin had trouble sleeping that night, thinking a savage rabbit was going to attack him while he slept.
When Ramona was about 12, she was going out with a guy around the same age, and their relationship was going pretty well. One day, he started talking with Ramona about his favorite games, and Ramona told him she didn't really care for them. He seemed fine, like he was totally okay with Ramona's opinion. About a week later, Ramona woke up to the words, "I'm breaking up with you because you don't like Minecraft." Oh my god. Ramona got confused and thought he was joking, but he wasn't.
Nixium's parents were friends with everybody on the block, and naturally Nixium chatted with them from time to time. Their next door neighbor in particular was very friendly, He was always so nice and helpful that Nixium quickly began to trust him as family. One day, he asked Nixium to come over to his backyard. When he got there, his neighbor said he'd give him $50 if he poured a gallon of cooking oil on his head and back. An odd request, but Nixium complied, and after pouring the slightly viscous slime, he thanked him profusely and gave him the slightly moist $50 bill. Nixium asked him about the odd request the next day. Turns out he was wasted, totally drunk. He remembers that he had a good reason, but couldn't recall what that reason was. To this day, no one can answer the question.
One time, when Tolop was home alone, he was hanging upside down, shirtless off his couch, listening to Baby by Justin Bieber and screaming along to it. That was until Tolop's sister came home early, bringing 3 friends to stay overnight. Tolop was still singing at the top of his lungs as his little sister and 3 other girls walked in on him, still shirtless, still upside down, and singing along to Justin Bieber. They laughed so hard and so loud that they all fell down, and Tolop tumbled off the couch in surprise. The worst part is his sister got it all on video, which we don't have here for you today.
When Tolop went to his family reunion, he was given the job of looking after his little cousin. After a while, the kid needed to pee. Tolop took him to the bathroom and waited patiently outside the door, and suddenly he heard the kid shout,
"Monster! No! Jesus! Why take it away? Not again!"
Tolop had no idea what was going on. Under his breath, he said,
What the fuck?
and waited for his cousin to come out. When he did, Tolop asked him what happened, and the cousin replied,
Stay away, evil shit demon!
Not sure what kind of toilet training he went through, but it sounds traumatic. One of the most embarrassing things that ever happened to Melissa was when she was in 7th grade. It was lunchtime and she was eating a fruit cup with peaches in it. Whenever she put a peach in her mouth, one of her friends would make a loud fart noise. However, this time it caught her off guard and she laughed so hard that whole chunks of peaches came flying out of her nose and landed all over the table. The whole cafeteria saw it and burst out laughing. She was given the nickname Peaches for a long time after that.
One time, when he worked at Walmart, Helbin was in the dairy department with a new employee, Nixium. Their manager went to the backroom cooler where they were and told them to stock the eggs. Before they began to stock the eggs, Nixium asked Helbin how they were supposed to get the egg cartons to the back of the shelf, which went back about 3.5 feet. Helbin told him to just throw the cartons to the back with force. So Nixium drew back his arm and launched a carton of eggs onto the shelf, smashing it off the back. Helbin laughed really hard over it for about 40 minutes until Nixium was called to the manager's office. He was chastised and almost fired. Helbin ended up feeling horrible about it afterward.
The most embarrassing thing that happened to me while I was at work was when I had conversations with a friend via email. This was in 2010 when people actually used those. And I ended up printing out the whole conversation. This conversation went up to 50 pages. My boss ended up talking to me in the other office and he was like, Pringle, you better not do this crap no more. And I swear if I see you do this, we're gonna write you up. After that, I never did it again and I got freaked out. What's crazy is this almost happened again to me by mistake, but this time around, I made sure to press the cancel print button. In middle school, Pandora was a really shy kid who had a crush on an emo boy. One day, her friend Honeybits showed her stitches that she had drawn on all her fingers with a Sharpie. That's when Pandora got an idea. Later on at school, she drew lines on her hands to make them look animatronic. Pandora also did a cool effect where it looked like blood was leaking from the cracks. Honeybits knew her crush well, so she called him over and showed him her friend's hand. He only said, "That's cool." Not satisfied, about a week later, Pandora drew some creepy artwork of a decapitated head. That time he said, "Ooh, I like that, it's cool." She quietly said, "Thanks." But Honeybits had to explain that Pandora was diagnosed with social anxiety. He understood, though Pandora isn't sure whether or not he's her friend now.
Tolop's bratty little sister has a lot of annoying habits, but the worst one is the way she's always hiding his stuff. She loves going into his room and rearranging things, hiding his toys, controllers, art supplies, and even his phone in places he'll never look. One time, she took things too far. She hid her mom's car keys, stressing everyone in the house out, and making them late for work and school. This had serious consequences because Tolop had a test that morning. To this day, Tolop suspects his little sister is actually the devil.
Hellbent was a kid. A girl wanted to play spin the bottle with him. He didn't like her that much, but for some reason he decided to tag along. She told him they were playing super spin the bottle, meaning that each person had to say something romantic when the bottle landed on them and then kiss. She spun it and it landed on Hellbent. He didn't even know what romantic meant, but she got close to him and whispered, "What do you think about me?" Without thinking, he blurted out,
Your head looks like a turnip and you smell like puberty obesity.
She looked like she wanted to cry, but for some reason she still kissed him on the cheek. He told her that her lips were drier than lizard's lips, and she ran out of the bathroom crying.
Doopy used to work retail where she would just walk around helping customers. One time, a kid no older than 15 who was soaking wet for some reason ran up to her. She figured maybe he got caught in the rain or something. He demanded that she follow him. He ran into the men's bathroom with Doopy reluctantly following behind. When she walked in, he flung open the door to the handicap stall, and depicted on the wall was a picture of the earth with people holding hands around it, drawn in his own shit. He then dug around in his pocket, fished out a turd, and offered it to her. He asked, "Wanna play tic-tac-toe?" Doopy said, "Sure, hold on." She walked out of the bathroom and radioed the manager on duty, but by the time he got there, the kid was gone. He was almost caught brown-handed. Oh, had to put 2 puns in there about shit, huh?
The worst teacher Tolop ever had was in year 7. She'd find the smallest excuse, from dropping paper on the floor to sneezing, just to tell students off. So one lesson, while he was doing some silent reading, he was sent to the front desk because he was whispering to his friend about the diagram of a penis in a book. About 2 minutes passed and the class was completely quiet. His teacher then let out the loudest fart he has ever heard, and the whole class went into hysterics. Tolop then says, "Oh, that stinks," and the teacher gave him the death stare, only to reply, "Well, maybe you should have gone to the toilet before farting," essentially blaming Tolop for the fart. He then got mad at the teacher for embarrassing him, and he was given a 2-day detention at lunch for talking back to an adult.
The most disturbing thing that ever happened to Slapped Ham on a bus was when he was going on a school field trip. After the bus stopped suddenly, the bus driver pulled out a gun and shot himself. Luckily, the teacher knew how to drive a bus. They had a small funeral for the poor bus driver, and Slapped Ham never forgot how nice he used to be. He still cries about it to this day.
One Friday night, when Hellbent was in college, he and 5 of his friends took a train to a party. After a couple of minutes, the train stopped on the tracks, saying there was a delay. Right after the announcement, a homeless man sitting on the train laughed like a madman. He then pulled out what looked like a newspaper and started smoking it. The car started to smell like a combination of burnt plastic, meat, and something else. The man then started yelling at his own reflection, saying he wanted to rape and fuck everyone on the train. Once the train started up again, Hellbent and his friends got off at the next stop. Last thing he saw was the guy still laughing maniacally, smoking his makeshift joint, blowing smoke at the glass, and then licking it.